All right, thank you for the introduction. Thanks for being here, everyone. Happy Kalamazoo Social Media Week. It's always great to come back every year and meet folks behind the local brands that you follow. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about taking better photos and videos with the phone that you have. Does everyone have a smartphone here? I assume you do. And what I love so much about having a mobile phone is the ability to take pictures and videos anywhere you are. And it's something that everyone has. So like a little background on me, I was a reporter for 5 years at MLive, where I used my phone every single day to take photos, to take videos, to file stories. And now at now at Bell's, I use my phone all of the time because oftentimes when you have really beautiful shots of beer and enjoying it, you don't have your big camera rig with you, you have your phone. So why are so many of us here right now? It's all because we want to improve our visual storytelling. We're here at Kalamazoo Social Media Week to better connect with our followers on social media. Social media started off as a place that shared text, and then photos were introduced, then videos, and now there's a whole bunch of stuff: boomerangs, GIFs, live photos, 3D photos, and all of it comes down to visual storytelling. So visual storytelling is telling a good story with compelling photos and videos. So how do we do this? How do we get those compelling photos and videos? It's all about capturing moments. Good stories are built on these moments, moments that happen in life. So what are these moments? Moments are things that happen every single day that invoke emotion, that, someone hears a funny joke and they laugh. They interact with a product. They hear something that inspires emotion in the people in their lives. And then when you capture that, it's able to transfer that emotion to other people. So the phone, I think, is the best device to capture those moments because they can happen at any moment. We all know that things happen at a drop of the hat, and I love working with hiring photographers to come in to do video shoots, but they're supermen and they're superwomen. But if something happens right then and there, you can't call them and they won't fly in like the Man of Steel, if you have a special guest coming. So it's good to know with your content strategy to know how to use the phone that you have. So that's why I'm a big fan of the mobile phone. Phones used to be something that were tethered, into the ground, into the wall that you couldn't take with you. But now they're mobile. You can take them with you. And with the camera, you're able to kind of do that the same way. So the greatest thing about the mobile phone for me, and I think the real revolution with it in terms of photography and videography, is that with one device, you're able to take photos, to capture content, edit that content, and share that content all seamlessly. Before you'd have to have a camera, then an editing bay or a computer, and now you can do this all, and then publishing it. Now you can do it all with one device that fits in your pocket. So when you think about, mobile photography and videography, you might think you need something like this. I was very excited to get all this gear years ago. You might think you need a special case to put your phone in, a special microphone, a special stand, probably some lenses that are in your pocket. You need to gussy it all up, dress it all up. And while there's a lot of amazing things you can do with lenses and attachments and all of that stuff, you're not going to be able to use those. You probably aren't carrying those around in your pocket with you or in your bag when you see something like a rainbow, at the place you work. Or like last night for me when I was going for a walk, compelling car crash. I still have the journalist in me. I can't stop. When I see police lights, I run to it. And my friends who don't know me when I was a journalist are like, why? No, we should go away. Oh no, we have to go check it out. As long as we don't cross the police tape, we're going to be fine. So with this presentation, I want to leave you with 3 things: a better understanding about the camera, the actual camera that's in your phone, an overview of kind of my mobile-first philosophy and how I approach taking photos and videos, and also a bunch of practical tips. Let's just get the tips and tell you how to do things. So I'm not going to teach you the very specifics of the minute detail of editing photos and editing videos. That's a whole other multiple presentations that we can give. But at the end of this, I'm going to include a link to my blog where I'm going to have all of the tips that I've given here and also links to other resources to help you out with that. And I'm also available if you ever have any questions. So these are things that I've taught people over the years, and I hope that they can help you as well. And if you ever have any questions during this about anything that I'm talking about, pop your hand up. I'd love to answer them right now, but we are going to have some time for Q&A at the end. So a little disclaimer about this presentation. I've been using an iPhone for the last 10 years, and I really love the device, and I use it. So a lot of the screenshots that you'll see and some of the terminology that might slip out are specific to the iPhone, but the things I'm going to be talking about today are for all types of mobile phones. There's iPhones, there's Android phones that have a lot of great stuff. Does anyone still use a BlackBerry? I think they have cameras on it, so let's just torch it. Let's just get rid of the BlackBerry. I found my old BlackBerry a couple weeks ago, and I pulled out the card, and I found all of these old photos from like 2010, and it was a lot of fun. And like really bad quality, but whatever. So before we get going, let's talk about the limitations of your phone, right? If you have a $6,000 camera, it's going to take better photos than your phone. That's you can't really get around that, the technical limitations. So let's take a look at the limitations of what you have here, so then we can learn to kind of build on the strengths. So how does a camera work? So this is the fun interactive where you can see my other artistic abilities with drawing. So you have a camera right here, little eyepiece, a lens right here, and then you have some light like this, sun. And then you have someone who's really excited that they're getting their picture taken. Yay. So you have the sun. So cameras work just like our eyes work. If you remember back when you had, learned about the human body and how the eye focuses with light. So light comes from the light source, from the sun, coming down, and then it bounces off objects, the subject. So then inside the camera you have a sensor. Digital cameras have sensors. Back in the day, that was what film used to be. So the light comes, oh wow, this looks great on the big screen. So you have light coming through, and then the lens, much like the pupil of your eye, or the lens of your eye, focuses that, and then it comes in here, and then the sensor captures that light. So let's take a look at sensors right now. So on the left right there is the sensor of a 5D Mark IV, the big fancy camera that I use for work. And then on the right's the sensor for an iPhone 10. So as sensors, absorb light, let's take a look how they compare. So there's the sensor, big beautiful sensor. There's your iPhone sensor. It's pretty small in comparison. That's really small in comparison to the big full frame sensor. With lenses, you have all these different types of lenses that, big DSLR cameras can use, wide angle, telephoto, portrait lenses. But on your phone, you just have one or two fixed lenses. So what do all these different limitations mean? Since the sensor's smaller, you're going to be capturing less light, right? So you have a smaller piece that can capture light. So it's going to capture less information compared with that bigger sensor. So this means that if you're taking photos where there's not a lot of available light, your photos are going to be a little bit, less quality, a little grainy. So when the shutter opens on the camera to absorb that light, when you are in a lower light situation, it gets a little shaky. So has anyone taken a shaky photo before? It happens all the time. So I'll talk in a little bit about holding your camera and how you can kind of do that. With a smaller lens, there's no optical zoom. So on bigger cameras, when you have those big zoom lenses, you move the zoom, and literally the lens will move so you'll get closer. And it's the same high quality image that you would have, when it's wider. But with these, with the fixed lenses on your mobile phones, when you zoom in, it's just like cropping a photo later, right? So if you notice when you zoom in and the picture kind of falls apart and it's all pixelated and stuff. So when I'm taking pictures and there's something kind of far away, what I do is I take it right away so I can crop it later. And then I use my natural zoom that I have, my 2 feet, and just get closer to take pictures. So there's really not a big benefit for using the zoom unless you're somewhere and you want to really focus on composure and exposure with it. So what are the strengths of, where does the mobile phone really shine? When you have good natural light. When you have good light and that smaller sensor is able to, get all that information coming in. It's great when you're close to your subject as well. It's not necessarily the best when you're trying to get pictures of people in the back, with your phone, you have to move closer, you have to get closer, and it really shines with that. As you can tell with this photo, getting close to some nice spring flowers and with the light coming through. It's also great for speed, to be able to take a picture, edit it and send it. You can do things a lot quicker than you could ever with any other type of camera system. And also the software. I love taking boomerangs. I love all the different cameras that are out there. And that's something that really makes it stand out and shines. So the majority of when you're taking photos and you're shooting video, the majority of the decisions will be made before you even press the shutter on your phone. A lot of things come with the planning, so we're going to look at two of those right now. The first is looking at light. So photography is all about capturing light, right? So there's a lot of different kinds of light. When we look in a room like this, we have some these bulbs right here coming down that kind of give off, natural light. Then we could have, if it was a sunny day today, some natural light coming in. So looking at light is one of the most important things that you can do, is kind of figuring out where's the light coming from, what kind of mood is it, could you turn these lights off to get more natural light coming in? And that's the most important thing that you can do right off the bat, is just constantly look at light and see where the light's coming from, and just start thinking that way about light. So I think about light all the time. I'll be driving in my car and I'll be like, oh gosh, the light's hitting really nice right now. And we can really see it right now. I mean, with all the flowers out right now in spring, just kind of how, if you look at a tree over the course of like 3 hours, the light, as it hits it, things change. So constantly look at light. And as you can tell with this photo right here of our hop yard at Bell's, beautiful morning in the hop yard. Hops are getting ready to be harvested. And you get that nice morning light kind of coming in, at a diagonal. And you get that nice shadow behind it. So it's always good to look at light, think about light. And the more you think about light and the more you, take photos in different types of light, the more you're going to realize what light, what good light is. The second is framing your shot. Well, that's not really popping up, but it's okay. Framing your shot. It's just as important as light. Ultimately, it's what your photo and video is, right? What you see in your viewfinder and on your camera is what it's going to be. So there's a lot of different, you have your subject, you have the background. So framing your shot's all about, telling that story. And the best part, a really good thing to get better photos and better videos is play around with the framing. Try to get get low, get a high. And oftentimes I don't know what a good photo is until I hold my camera up and I start playing around with different angles and stuff like that. Have you ever seen like a director go like this, or like a meme of someone doing this? And what that is, it's to kind of, focus in and think about what you would see, in that frame. So how do you do that, right? This is kind of like it's all artistic stuff. How can anyone do it if you don't think you're an artist? So there's something called the rule of thirds. So I'm not going to get into the whole history of the ancient Greeks figuring this out, but basically some ancient Greeks figured out that if you have a photo or a picture or an image and you have these divided up into these 9 areas, these thirds, the human eye will go to either the lines or to where the lines intersect. So let's take a look at that real quick. Here's a apple blossom growing on an apple tree out at the brewery. And, right into the dead center, great. There's the apple blossom. It's growing. But when you frame it kind of with the rules of thirds, your eye kind of goes to that instinctively. It's kind of crazy how it does it. So I use the rule of thirds. You can turn on your phones. There's an option to turn on a grid mode. And that's how you can have that grid overlay. And it's a great way to, when you're taking photos and you need to make those quick decisions, you can just have it and just line it up and go, because photography can happen like that. Holding the camera. Now this is a big deal, because if you don't hold the camera right, you could get shaky images, and you could get kind of more blurry images. So when I hold my camera, my phone, always make sure to hold it on all 4 sides like this with both hands. Sometimes you have to kind of do this. As someone who's tall, I do a lot of that. But when you're taking generally like photos and videos, hold it like this so you have anchors on all 4 corners. If you're shooting video, be aware where the microphones are. One time, I think, when I shot my first video, I held it like this and it was all muffled. So be aware where the microphones are and hold it like this, hold it like this. When shooting video, I often put my arms in like this. It looks kind of funny, but what that does is your hands and your arms are kind of stationed and are supported by your body, and you can kind of go like this. So I kind of have a secret tip. It's kind of weird to explain about holding your camera, and this is specifically for video. So bear with me a little bit. When you're filming a video, look through your camera. So I found that, especially with mobile phones, when I'm taking a video and I'm holding it, I'm like, okay, I'm holding my camera right now. I'm holding my phone right now. Let me take videos. And you're focusing on your hands and the camera, right? So you're focusing on that, and for some reason, you just become more self-conscious and it shakes a little bit. But I find if when you hold it and you're not thinking about holding the camera and you're thinking about what's on there and you kind of forget about what you're doing here, it creates for much more of a smooth, thing. So it's something to try out. It's a little out there, but I've told some people over the years about this and they said it works out great. So when you do it, just think about looking through the camera. So working with people, I was at a presentation a couple weeks ago and they said, millennials like puppies and not people. And as a millennial, I was like, well, I like both. You can't have puppies without people. So having people in our content on social media is really good because it helps connect. It helps highlight the people you work with. It helps highlight the people who love, your brands. And working with people can be a little intimidating, right? Like, hey, I'm gonna film you today. Are you ready? I'm gonna take pictures of you and put them on the internet. People can kind of get weirded out like that. So what I find is just be human. Make them feel comfortable. Talk to them. One thing when I'm taking portraits of people, so this is a picture I'm taking of my coworker John when we're getting some new tanks in. I'm constantly, he's good at getting his picture taken, but oftentimes when I'm taking pictures of people, I'm constantly talking to them. I'm telling them jokes. I'm kind of, a lot of self-deprecating humor is very good as well. But just whatever you can do to make folks feel comfortable and kind of forget that you're taking their picture is really good as well. Oftentimes, a lot of photographers, don't like to show their photos. Yeah.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
When you're talking with them, do you like to ask questions? Because I found that instead of just like telling jokes or just keep talking and getting them to laugh, I'll ask them questions so I can get shots of like their mouth moving or them smiling.
Yeah.
So do you like doing that? Like, is that a tactic that you like doing specifically?
Totally, yeah. Like I'll talk to them about stuff. Normally, to get a smile, I just make a really corny joke. But yeah, if it's like more of a serious photo, kind of talk them through it a little bit. Like don't do the whole, oh, beautiful, beautiful, yes, yes. Unless that's a way to get someone to relax and, have fun with it all. But yeah, talking to people or we had a video shoot. We had a production crew was in to film a commercial, and she did a really good job the folks at Maestro came in and they were filming, and they did a really good job with the people who are there to like talking to them and kind of like invoking emotions like, oh, you have no idea what's going on, because it was all kind of silent facial things. So, talking to people and just trying to elicit, and a lot of it's kind of like fishing, right?
Yeah.
It's like, and the same thing when you interview people and ask them questions, right? So like when I'm interviewing people and asking them questions, and this comes from being a reporter, I ask people the same question 4 different times, right? Mm-hmm. And it's funny now because now in the marketing world, when I'm kind of fishing for that perfect answer, a perfect soundbite, people will be like, Fritz, just tell me what you want me to say. And I'm like, 4 years later, and I'm still not used to that. So, just trying different things, it's kind of like fishing, and you just keep trying, and, don't be too overbearing, but there's a balance in between, get the shot and keep working with it. It's a good question. So I like to show people photos as I'm taking them. Some photographers don't like to do that, but oftentimes it makes people feel more comfortable to know that you're not making them look horrendous. I always tell people, like, look, it's not my job to make you look ugly on the internet, okay? And if there are some funny photos, I will send them to you and maybe some of your friends, as like a fun joke thing. But, always assure people that your job is not to make them look goofy or silly, because we're all in this together. Unless you're in the journalism world, and if someone, That's a different thing. But in the marketing world with social media, your job is to make people look good. And I always send people photos when I'm done, kind of from the whole shoot, because oftentimes I'm taking pictures of people who are coworkers or they're people in the community, and you'll see them again. So it's kind of a nice thing to do to send people photos. So I'm a good citizen. Every time I fly, I turn on airplane mode, even though I don't know the science behind it. They say that you don't really need to do it, but whatever. I turn it on, but airplane mode can be used for more than just flying in the sky. So when I was a reporter, I would be in a scrum, filming, in Capitol in Lansing, filming a politician speaking and holding it up. And then my mom would call me and ruin the whole thing. The video would stop, and I would have to hang up on my mom, which is never a good thing to admit publicly, but I had to. So our phones they're great cameras, but they're ultimately phones to begin with. And so whenever I do a video, I flip it on airplane mode, and then that way you're going to get no calls are going to ruin it and ruin the video. But if you're doing a live video, you need a connection to the internet. So Do Not Disturb is a great option for if you're doing a live video. I guess I could use Do Not Disturb for videos as well, but I just like knowing that nothing's going to happen. But throw Do Not Disturb on, and if you have an iPhone, go into the settings, because by default you'll get notifications when your phone's unlocked. So you could still get a call come through, and you can turn it on to always have notifications off, which my iPad has right now, because who knows what people are texting me.
Funny shots of you during this presentation.
Yeah, right? As they should. Play around with different modes and different settings. So when I go to a shoot, I take a photo and get it, but then play around with slow-mo, play around with video, play around with portrait mode, play around with boomerangs. Not only could it be better content, but it's supplemental content as well. So if I'm taking something and share it on Instagram and then have a couple boomerangs that I took, that's a great Instagram story to supplement that content. So just play around. I mean, there's so many different apps and so many different modes that you can do. That's really fun. So speaking of modes, let's talk about portrait mode. So have you all used portrait mode before? Portrait mode is really cool. So it kind of replicates the portrait lenses, where you have that nice, what photographers call bokeh, and you have a really nice focus on your subject. The background's blurred out, really makes compelling images. And it's all done in the software, right? So on big cameras, on your normal cameras, you have, a lens that kind of creates that bokeh effect. But on mobile phones, it's all software. So it's really cool. I love it. I love whipping out. I was at a Tigers game this weekend and took a lot of really great photos in portrait mode. Yes?
So is that primarily what portrait mode is a short depth of field?
Yep.
Short amount of focus?
Mm-hmm.
So that your background is out?
Is blurred out, yep. And on newer phones, I know the new Pixels have it, the new iPhones have it, and you're able to actually change the aperture settings on it. So you can kind of dial it in to be really blurry or have it be, more in focus.
What was that term you were using?
Bokeh.
What is it?
It's some fancy photography term that people always like. It just means like that blurring in the background. So it's like the bokeh effect. And people kind of get bokeh crazy with stuff. I do sometimes. It looks so cool.
I have a quick addition.
Yeah.
There's an app called Point Blur that you can use to do this afterwards if you didn't use portrait mode.
Oh, cool.
So that's really cool. Point Blur.
Point Blur.
Yeah.
Awesome. I have to check that out.
You can go in and actually make this.
Yeah.
If you didn't turn it on.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It's really cool, and it really makes your images stand out. I always love taking, portraits of people with it and show them, and it's like, well, it just adds, a really nice thing to it. But since it's software-based, there can be some downsides. So here's a beautiful, glass of beer at the Center Cafe. If you've never been there, check it out. It's a really great place. Yep.
Is there an app that can provide you portrait mode if you're on an older model?
The one Point Blur, that you do it after the effect. So I know on on iPhones at least and Pixels as well, it's done with kind of a combination of like the newer software. So it's an intensive process. So it's something that I think that all newer phones are going to have. So for me, it was one of the reasons that made me get a newer phone, because I really wanted to play around with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Have you used Android? It's called Light Focus.
Okay. Oh, awesome, that's cool. Live focus? So point blur and live focus. I'll have to remember these to add to the blog post afterwards.
Yeah.
Yep.
What's a boomerang?
So a boomerang it's kind of funny. So boomerang is basically like an animated GIF that you take with your, have you seen the things where it's like someone's doing something and it's like back and forth? Yeah.
That's what they're doing.
Yep. Yeah. So it's an app that Instagram has called Boomerang. You can also do it with live photos if you have that on iPhone. And it's kind of funny because it's like, animated GIFs were such a thing in the early days of the internet where we didn't have big bandwidths and it was a way to do it. And now GIFs are coming back in a whole new way. And I love shooting them and sharing them because it's just, they're fun. All right. So portrait mode. Software at the cafe, glass of beer. Looks great, right? You kind of get a sense of where it is, but when you zoom in a little bit closer, it's kind of hard to see here, but the glass kind of disappears. The phone doesn't know what to do with the background in the glass because you can see through it. So it kind of fades away and looks a little funky. So let's look at another example. So some nice weeds growing in Bronson Park. Beautiful, I love it. And this is right when I got a portrait mode enabled phone, and I was just like, wow, this is really stunning. Beautiful day. But as we zoom in here, you can tell that on the stem, it kind of falls apart a little bit. It's blurred out in some spots, not there in other spots. So it's a little strange. So what do you do with that? I didn't share the photo of the beer because it looks weird and kind of people might seem like, ugh, that's strange. This photo right here, you don't really notice it. So what I do with portrait mode is I always take photos in the normal mode beforehand and then switch over to portrait mode just in case if I shoot something that's a little funky and weird, then I have something to fall back on because oftentimes you don't realize that it looks funky until you go in and start editing.
The Pixel actually captures both.
Oh, it does? Awesome. Yeah.
I've got the 3
And it does both?
Yeah.
So it does portrait and then also gives you another. Nice.
Yeah.
So I should have asked if anyone has issues with Flash before I did that. But so Flash, who likes to use Flash on their phones? Okay, then I might be preaching to the choir. Yeah, there's certain circumstances, but yeah, you like to use it?
Well, so I'm a hairstylist.
Uh-huh.
And the ring lights and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, depending if you don't have access to a ring light, sometimes, like, it's almost necessary.
Oh, yeah.
Like, kind of just brighten it up a little bit.
Mhm.
It's like a struggle, I guess, like.
Yeah, totally. Like there's often, so I'm not a proponent of the Flash at all unless you're in a situation where you need to do it like that. I'm sure like with hair where you want it, where that kind of, you want that focus on it, on the style. I'm not a big fan of Flash. It takes people out of the moment. Takes a long time to load. When you hit the Flash button, it's like 3 or 4 seconds and people are already like, why is this phone in my face? And it's like, ugh, blows up. And it kind of looks unnatural. So now, gosh, I feel like I'm just like, don't use your Flash, clean your lenses. But I often forget to clean the lens on your phone. I mean, we're using these things all the time. You should probably clean your phones as well, like every day. Like think about everything you touch and everything, yeah. So cleaning your lens is really important. Here's a photo that I took when I was leaving Bell's one night. And no, it wasn't, I thought I was seeing things, but it was really just because my lens was dirty. So I cleaned it on my shirt and voila. So I oftentimes forget, I'm like, what's wrong with the lights? And I look at my lens and it's like kind of right now, it's kind of gross. I should have cleaned it before this. So shoot horizontal and vertical. When I go out, I'm always shooting horizontal photos and vertical photos. It used to be, never shoot vertical photos, but so much of our phones are vertical right now. So I always make sure and get in the practice of shooting both, even though I like horizontal better. But there'll be times where I'll be taking photos and then get back and be like, oh, we want an Instagram story, or designers love vertical photos if you work with any designers. So I always shoot both now, just as out of habit, so I never go back and not have something that we need. So talking a little bit about moments earlier, capturing these moments. Once you start seeing moments and start thinking about moments, you can start anticipating moments. A great example is if you're taking pictures of a birthday party and someone's in the kitchen lighting the candles, you got to get your camera out to anticipate. You know something exciting, there's going to be a great moment happening pretty soon, the happy birthday song. This is an example right here. When I was walking downtown a couple months ago, I saw a bunch of ducks. So this is by that antique mall, and there's always ducks hanging around there. And I saw a bunch of ducks hanging out, and I was like, oh, I bet when I walk by them, they're going to fly away. So got my phone out, and as I was walking, they flew away, and I snapped this photo. And it ends up, this is like one of my favorite photos of just walking around, because you have the skyline of Kalamazoo, cranes, 2 new projects happening, and you have birds flying, elevating, getting higher and higher. So, yeah. So hit on editing photos real quick. What I'll say about editing photos, and I'll have links to things you can do with editing photos. Shadows are great, highlights are great to kind of play around with. But coming from my photojournalism background, edit photos, the thing that I learned in photojournalism, when you take photos and you edit photos, you're showing people what you see with your eye, right? You're showing people what you actually see. I mean, on Instagram, we see photos that are amazing of someone like a tent, and then the whole nebulous, galaxy is up there. And it's like, oh, wow, this is really cool. And it's like, wait, that galaxy is on the other side of the universe or whatever. Like, there's a lot of photoshopping and a lot of, people doing fake stuff right now. So I would encourage you when you're editing photos, try to aim for what you see, especially in marketing. You want to be sincere and honest with your fans, with the people that follow you. And I always go back when I'm editing photos. Sometimes I kind of get in it and it's like saturation's all the way up, and I'm like, this is amazing. I always go back and take a look at the original photo to make sure that I'm not going too crazy with the edit job. So some quick video tips. When I'm shooting videos, always think about your final video project as you're shooting it. Think about, write up a little sketch beforehand, but think about, okay, this is going to be a great opening shot. This is going to be a great ending shot. And always think about how it's going to feed into your final video, because what you don't want to do is get back to editing and realize you never got a close-up shot of the Oberon mini keg or something like that. I'm just thinking about examples in my life that I've made those mistakes before. When shooting B-roll, when you're shooting a lot of different B-roll, get more than you think you actually need. I like to use a haircut analogy, that if you walk into like a hair salon with a buzz cut, there's like 2 things they can do, like buzz it a little bit shorter or just shave your head. But if you walk in with longer hair, like I have, there's probably 1,000 things that a stylist can do. So there's been so many times when I've been editing a video and I have a spot, like a 5-second spot to fill with B-roll, like, oh, this is gonna be perfect, then I grab it and it's 3 seconds, and I'm like, I need 2 more seconds. I need 2 more seconds to make this work. So I always, whenever I shoot B-roll, shoot 10 to 12 seconds. And it seems like a long time, but it will help you out in the long run. Oh, also with videos, when you're filming it, realize that, especially with mobile devices, you can't do as much editing with exposure and color as you can with stills. So you don't have as much room to kind of like overexpose or underexpose or work with that on your phone. I mean, you can import it into like a big grade, fancy computer software and probably get more out of it. Yep.
I have a photojournalist friend
Mm-hmm.
who preaches passionately about doing horizontal video.
Yeah, that was the way for the longest time, but horizontal video doesn't look good on Instagram stories. And
I'll get back to him.
yeah, so I often do, like we do a lot of these videos where we interview people at the brewery, kind of like, what are you thankful for this Thanksgiving? And I always shoot those vertically because people want to open them up and look at them on their phone. It's very mobile-driven content. Now, if I'm shooting a video that's going to be like on TV or on YouTube, I might shoot multiple versions of it or think about how can I edit it to horizontal. Instagram TV is also vertical as well, and I often go back and edit horizontal videos to vertical and kind of wish I was shooting both at the same time. So I'm going to update my title real quick. Oops, You almost have everything that you need. I was going to draw it, but we'll skip that. When shooting videos, sit-down interviews with people, long-term videos, you need to get a couple things. Tripod, mount for your phone on that tripod, and then some type of microphone. And you can get most of this stuff together for less than $100. So it's not a huge investment. And if you're doing any type of videos where you're interviewing people or a time lapse, your arms will thank you and your viewers will probably thank you, because no one can hold the phone for I think I've held it for 5 minutes before, and then I was just like, okay, I need to get a tripod right now.
Fritz, have you any experience with those handheld gimbals? For
Yeah.
iPhone?
They're great.
Okay.
I love them until I don't have them. I love having it. I love using it, and I do a lot of videos with that. And when I know I'm going to be doing something, it's great to have. But I don't rely on it too much, because there's often times where something's going to happen or something's going to come up and I don't have it, or the battery's dead on it, or I'm out someplace else and want to film it. So those are great devices to kind of add on. And I think DJI makes a great one that's like $150 that we have, and it's great. And especially if it's longer stuff. I think the Gazette, during the homeless camp protests or whatever, they had one of those and was doing a live Facebook video stream for 2.5 hours or something crazy like that. And I asked the guy, I was like, is that all handheld? He's like, oh no, I had a gimbal. I was like, man, 2 hours of doing that. So remember, you're always practicing, you're always learning. Photography is an art, always getting better. So always look back at what you've done, think about how you can do it better, but also look at what you've done and be happy with it, and kind of look at what you like and kind of think about what you like and what you didn't like. Something that I would recommend if you want to kind of improve your photography and videography game and framing and light and everything like that is to take a picture of the same thing every day. So when I lived in Lansing, I walked past the state capitol every day, which was really awesome. But I kind of told myself, every day I'm going to take a different picture of the capitol in a different light, different angle. And that really helped me to think about framing things differently, right? Because how many pictures of the same thing can you take? You can take a lot. And that kind of also helps, a lot of people say oh, I like to take pictures of different things every day, not the same thing. But by taking pictures of the same thing every day and in different times and with different light and different angles, it helps you build up an awareness of what your camera can do and what different light can do as well. So that's just a thing that I would recommend if you want to step it up. Have fun. Don't forget that we're in social media, we're in marketing, we're taking photos, we're taking videos, we're getting creative, we're sharing it on the internet, and people get to see it. So it can be a struggle sometimes. I've had many late nights editing video, doing stuff like that, and just always remember, it's we're here to have fun, we're here to share stuff, we're here to get people excited about our brands and what we're doing, and we get to do it in a creative way. So my last tip right here is a tip that a photojournalist taught me when I first started working when I was a young pup, and that's to spend 10 minutes. So if you have an assignment, if you have a photo you have to get, spend 10 minutes getting a safe shot and then experiment. So this is when you go in and you have to take a picture or something, get that kind of photo that's basic, that if all else fails, you're going to have something to post. What we used to say in the newspaper world is, no matter what happens, there's going to be a photo on the front page of the paper, because if you don't have a photo on the front page of the paper, that's never a good thing. So after you get that safe photo that's going to work no matter what, start experimenting, start playing around different angles, different lights. And more times than not, the photos that I experiment with are the ones that are my favorite, are the ones that resonate most on social media, and are the ones that I'm most happy about. And then there's other times where I come back and I'm really excited about a photo, show it to my colleagues, and they're like, what? You don't even see the brand in it. People have no idea what it is. Yeah, but they'll understand. And then I can always fall back on to have that safe shot. So basically it's, don't put all your eggs in one basket, have multiple different options available. So that's it from what I kind of have. So QR code to my blog where I have all of these tips and some other information. There's a bit.ly link right there. Twitter and Instagram, if you have any questions, if you're out doing something, be more than glad to help you out, and kind of open to questions right now. We have a few minutes, I think. So, yeah.
What do you use for editing videos? Like a quick
Yeah, so if you have an
or something?
Yeah, if you have an iPhone, I'd recommend, iMovie is great. There are some limitations to it, but if you're looking for something a little bit more robust, because I know iMovie can be it frustrates me sometimes. LumaFusion is an app. I think it's like $10, and it allows you to have more granular control over stuff, like audio levels and stuff like that. So it's kind of like a Premiere on your phone. And it's great, especially for those quick things that you need to do. But oftentimes, if I'm, taking a photo that I need to do a quick turnaround on, I try to shoot it in one take, right? Like, so I don't have to do editing, just when you hit record, get all the detail shots and kind of treat it like a live video. Yeah.
Adobe Clip is another app
Yep.
that you can use that's not as robust, but it's good for like getting it out quickly for videos
And-
if you're doing it on mobile.
And they just came out with
And that one's free.
Adobe Rush as well, I think, came out, and that's also a really good one that gives you a little bit more oomph than iMovie. And yeah. Yeah, I have. They're really great. Moment makes some really great lenses, and what I like about Moment is it feels like each lens is like $100, but they're really good quality, and it feels like they really try to make them so when a new phone comes out, they're obsolete, where you can use them for years and years and years like that. I like using the different lenses if I know I'm going to be doing something. But what I want people to think about, take away from this presentation is you kind of have great stuff with the phone, because when I'm walking around, I'm not carrying around all those lenses with me. Even if I go, like I said, I went to a Tigers game, I don't even know if I would bring those lenses with me. I might, but you have to have a special case and stuff. But they're really cool, so check out Moment. If it's something you kind of want to play around with, usually the clearance section at Meijer has some occasionally. Or you can find some cheaper versions. But Moment, I think, is kind of like the gold standard for good quality attachable lenses on your phone. Yeah.
Do you have any tips for doing group and grin in big groups?
Group photos.
Yeah, those.
I like it because I don't have to be in the group photo and I can take the photo.
Is there a wide angle lens to put on my phone?
Yeah. So you can buy wide-angle attachments for group photos and stuff like that. I know the Pixel has like the expanded selfie mode now, which kind of makes it wider. I have an Apple Watch, so I just normally set it up and go and do that, or you can do it for like 10 seconds and it flashes if you need to get it further away from you. But yeah, group photos are great for that. So yeah, there's attachments that you can get for that for sure if you need to get a whole lot of people in it. Yes.
You showed your picture of the ducks. Do you have any tips for freezing motion?
Rapid fire. Oftentimes where there's a lot of movement, just hold down that shutter, because you never know, there might be something here or there. Also holding, like good. In that instance, there was a lot of light coming through, so it wasn't like at night. Now, if those ducks are flying at night, it might be a little bit more blurry, and you actually see that. But the nice thing is, and there are apps available, for both iPhone and Android that give you more of like control over shutter speed and stuff like that. But I often don't use those, because if I'm seeing something I want to take a picture of, I'm just hitting the default app. And then I like using other apps for certain things, but I hate kind of going in between. It's like open up the default camera app and it's like, oh, that feature's not available. Well, I like to simplify it quite a bit. Yeah.
So, are you constantly like uploading and dumping with your storage, or are you having multiple phones? I'm just curious because
Yeah.
like the guy who does all of the social for the Tigers. I mean, he has a little bit different pace maybe than you do, but he would carry his multiple phones, multiple power packs, all of that business. And I'm just wondering, like, realistically, if you are devoting, a percentage of your day to getting your social stuff, your content, and then you're working on other marketing or like plotting, strategically, like working on plans. So
Yeah, so I have two phones because when you work in the beer industry and post on social media, you don't want to accidentally post something in the wrong spot, especially when you're posting about a new beer that came out. So it just makes it really relaxed. So I have two phones, but they're all connected via like iCloud photo storage, and then I have it all back up to Google Photos as well. So I haven't run into it. Kind of takes care of the storage on its own. When I'm having like my bigger cameras, they hook up to the phones and you're able to get it on there. So yeah, I just kind of dump everything in and look at if I need to find something, either search metadata tags or look at my calendar, what was going on, then go to that date.
Right?
I think we have time for one more question. I'll stick around afterwards as well before. Yep.
So you mentioned a lot of items about outdoor light and getting good light there, but if you have to take like a flat lay or like a product shot indoors,
Yeah.
any tips on how to make sure you're getting good light indoors?
Totally. So for product shots, with like that white background, right, that you can mask out and do stuff with, I forget the name of it. I'll have to look it up and put it in, but you can get like a little light box. It's like $99. That's perfect for mobile phones. We use it all the time. I think it's not Canopy. I'll have to take a look at it. But for that, like studio lighting is its own, thing. If it's something with people, you're indoors with people, I play around with different lamps and stuff like that. I kind of like to use things that are available instead of using the flash, because oftentimes, I don't know, my face gets oily sometimes. And when people use flash, it looks like I'm like 13 years old again, with it. So kind of using like lamps and stuff like that. What I find is if you're looking for a really cheap like light setup, is those painter lights, with the clamps. So you can get those and they're like, like $15 each, $10 each. So you can get those and you can get different color lights or whatever. And that's a really cheap option, for videos or whatever to do.
Additional tip
Yeah.
on that point, add wax paper over it as like a
Oh, yeah.
filter, and just like use clothespins to clip it on.
That's really good,
what I
yeah.
do for my video
Yeah.
setups.
You don't need the super fancy stuff. If you have the budget, get it, but if not. So I think it's time to go to lunch. I'll stick around afterwards if anyone has any questions. Feel free to reach out to me anytime if you have any questions, and thanks for coming.